Welcome everyone to Slow Art Friday. I'm Paige Taylor, the Learning and Engagement Assistant here at the Asheville Art Museum, and I'm joined today by our touring docent, Hank Bovee. As we participate today, please remember to silence all alerts from devices and try to avoid sitting in front of a strong light source. Use headphones and a microphone for best sound quality. Use a desktop, laptop, or tablet for the best viewing experience. Be sure that your screen name includes your first and last name or your first name and last initial. To make questions, to ask questions or make comments, you can unmute your microphone and join in the conversation, type in the chat box, or raise your hand. And just a reminder, we are recording, so if you prefer not to be part of the recording, you're welcome to turn your microphones and your video cameras off and participate through the chat box. Every Friday at 12 p.m., docents lead virtual interactive conversations about a few artworks in our collection or special exhibitions. The goal is simple: slow down, discover the joy of looking at art, and talk about the experience with others. For today's program, Hank will lead us in an interactive conversation about 4 artworks in our collection. We'll spend about 15 minutes or so with each artwork. Hank will allow us time to look at each artwork on our own, slowly, before leading a conversation about each one with questions. As participants, we encourage you to engage in dialogue with Hank, myself, and each other. Hank, what are we going to be talking about today? Oh.
Good morning, everybody. So, interesting music selection, and I agree with the commenters that it was a perfect piece. We normally select our Slow Art Friday slides a month or 2 in advance, and that gives museum staff time enough to get it prepared, get it on the website, get it on the art museum's calendar. So, and I pick slides for different reasons, and for this Slow Art Friday, I just picked the slides because I thought they were pretty. No more, no less. I thought these are pretty. We'll talk about those. And when I looked at the very first one.
Hank, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing you when previously I heard you pretty well. Do you want to maybe?
That's the mouse speaker.
Okay. When we did our check, you sounded loud and clear.
Is that better?
Yes, but
Right.
Much better for me. Okay, sorry about interrupting. Thank you.
No, thanks so much. So I'll start over. So anyways, as I mentioned, if you heard me, I selected this Friday slides based on the fact that they were just pretty. No other reason. I thought these are some pretty artwork, so we'll talk about those. And then when I looked at the first one and saw that blue sky, the Louis Armstrong song came into my head, and that's why I selected the theme of What a Wonderful World for discussion. And the question, I think at least 2 of them were based also on lines from the song. And I do not select the music for the Slow Art Fridays. We've got a couple of docents that volunteer to do that, Kathy Segrin and Steve Bennett, and they always do an excellent job. And when I got on the session this morning and Paige told me what the music was, I thought, that's perfect. So I'm glad you all appreciate that as well. So with that said, as you all know, I think everybody on here has been with me on the Slow Art Fridays. You know, we put up an artwork. I give you a few moments to look at it, and then we talk about it. So with no further ado, Paige, if you would go ahead and put the first one up there, we'll take a look at it. All right, so what's going on in this artwork?
I feel like the artist just saw a Mark Rothko like I just did, and then did their own variation. So I see half of it as blue, and then I see brownish oranges with texture. And it's interesting about the dots on the border. And then I see a beautiful blend. And then I see, excuse me for saying this, but I'm just thinking of the ocean and sea anemones and vegetation. I think this is beautiful. Thank you, Hank.
So exactly, that's why I picked it out. It was beautiful, and I agree with you. It does. I can see the ocean there. I didn't see that at first, but I see what you're talking about, and the anemones at the bottom, whatever those are, certainly does look like that. So, some good observations. What else can we see?
I see a wall.
Can you make it?
I'm sorry. I see a wall. It looks like, I don't know why I'm thinking of the in an ancient city, or maybe, I don't know why, made me think of the wall in Jerusalem. But I agree about the anemones and like the waves coming up. And I love the blue sky. It's so solid, just about. And then the contrast in all the textures.
I really like the colors too. And it's interesting to me, the line that divides the solid blue on the top, it isn't totally straight. Like if you go left to right, there's kind of like a dip or like a divot kind of there, which I'm attracted to that. And I just, I feel that you get some motion from the bottom, whether those are waves or rocks or something. And then yet the upper part of the picture is so still.
Micah Jean says in the chat that that it reminds her of New Mexico in the Southwest. I agree with that.
That's why it makes me think of a wall, because like you said, like Laura said, the dip and the texture, and whether those are dots or protrusions or indentations, like almost like holes to look through.
I don't think we can.
So, and Sandy, you lit up like you were going to say something, or did you have a comment? Okay. It's interesting how you are, a couple of you are drawn to the little imperfections. You know, Laurel, you mentioned that little dip kind of in the center of the divide between the brown and the blue. And then Ellen, you mentioned the little imperfections in the bottom. So I find it very interesting that you're drawn to that. That maybe because it is pretty much two colors, the brown and the blue, little imperfections might be the areas of interest in this artwork. Anything?
I see a lot of orange in that, what you're calling brown. And I know that the orange and the blue are complementary. So I think that's one thing that really draws us to this, that those two colors go together so well. Also, we're having a little difficulty seeing the very bottom of this picture. Is there any way you can bring it up? We can't see whether those are rocks, or we're just seeing the
I can zoom in. Or are you saying that it looks like it's getting cropped, or you just like to see it closer?
Yeah, we'd like to see the bottom of the picture. Oh, that's much better. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Oh, it definitely looks like a wall. It's so textured.
I was going to say it even looks almost like a photograph. It looks like a photograph to me of a wall.
So
maybe with the ocean hitting it. You know, maybe it's taken from a boat. I don't know. It has a photographic feeling to it.
Well, and Barbara, that's actually very on topic, because the thing I was going to mention is this is a photograph that made
Yeah, right. That's why it looks like a photograph. But it does look like a Rothko also. I really like it. It's a Rothko inspiration.
I love all the contrast textures.
Simplicity and color, yes.
It looks like vegetation almost on the bottom, like some sort of sea vegetation to me when Paige had zoomed in before. Yeah.
To me, it looks kind of almost like water, like maybe
Yeah,
like the surf.
Flash up against it.
I think it's water splashing up against the wall because we see like an oval shape in several places, which would indicate that the water is splashing up. I want to say with adding the bottom part, it takes on a whole different life, this picture, and the stillness of the sky due to that it's a photograph. I don't know how it would come out if it was done in paint, just makes for a beautiful contrast. The proportions too.
Yeah, agreed. It feels like crashing waves to me at the bottom.
Yeah.
So, and that could be, and when I researched this artist, there was literally nothing out there about this person. I mean, nothing. But I did find out that he was born in Miami. So this could well be a seawall kind of view. And those of you that are seeing waves splashing, it could be. I don't know. Like I said, there was very little information out there, but it could be a seawall. But I think that's part of the beauty of this. As someone earlier thought this had a New Mexico look to it, and it also kind of could be a desert scene.
It looks to me, having spent a lot of time in the Southwest, it's just kind of my overriding feeling right now of indigenous ruins. It'll be interesting to see what the big reveal is.
Always.
And when I think of Miami, I think of Cuban immigrants. And even though he was born in Miami, perhaps his parents were Cuban, and maybe he visited Cuba, because I could see this as a wall in Cuba.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can see that.
The wall looks very ancient for some reason. That's why it made me think of the ruins or the wall in Israel and Jerusalem, or like you said, the South, someone said like the Southwest, maybe even in Mexico, although I keep thinking in Mexico, the ruins were more stone colored as opposed to this desert color.
And
Also, the sky out west can be just incredibly blue like that. Of course, that's true here, but the Southwest can have skies like that.
And also the Southwest can have, like Micah Jean is saying, have this blue sky without clouds because it's drier. So sometimes you see the sky looking just kind of wide open like this.
Yeah, that's true.
Did he use any filters?
Don't know. But he could have saturated the color when he was making the print. That's certainly a possibility because it does look a little saturated, but then again, it may not be.
And also look at the blue on the bottom in the water.
Yeah.
The more you look at it, you see yellows and greens, not just oranges and browns. Yeah, so there's more colors coming through.
And you know how on the beach, when the waves come crashing in, it's undulating, which would kind of explain at the bottom how somebody mentioned that rounded area kind of right of center. The unevenness of it reminds me again of crashing
water
waves.
splashing, yeah.
Well, I thought it was very Middle Eastern looking. When I first looked at it, somebody said wailing wall. I didn't think that because I don't think that has water splashing up against
Right,
it.
that throw it
Also,
there.
the idea of just being ancient and so old, we don't build walls like this anymore. And then those holes are very interesting. Usually you see them if they're going to put like rafters across or something. They've got holes at intervals, and so I'd be anxious to know what that was all about.
it could be one of the ancient forts or the older forts in either St. Augustine or in the Dry Tortugas in Florida. And maybe those holes are because it is a fort, to defend.
What is that star-shaped Florida fort?
Isn't
I'm
that
also
St. Augustine?
I'm also struck by potential meaning of the water, if it is, I'm just making this up, but the water crashing in and eroding away this potentially ancient structure, just making this up. I mean, the water is clearly advancing on the structure.
Somehow it reminds me of something I may have seen in Turkey. And there would, on some of the shorelines, yes, there would be the water, there could be the water crashing up. But I can't place it exactly where, but the coloration of the stone and the sandiness and the, you know, in a sense, desert, arid quality of it. Or
So,
the arid quality of the wall, that the orange and brown colors.
I do think of the Caribbean or the Mediterranean, but not the Atlantic. When I see this, it's just fascinating to know it's a photo instead of a painting.
so let me go ahead and we got a few others to look at, but I thought they all were awesome on this one. And I will tell you, one time I took a painting class when I was in college, and I could remember the professor saying, simple doesn't mean simple-minded. And I think this is such a good example of that, because this on the surface is a very simple piece of art. There's basically two colors, few little whatever's at the bottom, but yet you all have seen hints of the Caribbean, New Mexico, I heard someone say Middle East and Jerusalem, the desert, the water, Cuba. So I think, you know, and there may be a more subtle message of the waves eating away at an ancient wall. So I think that's a very telling that, you know, even though this image is very simple, there's so much going on in it that we were able to see all that. So excellent way to look at that. And let's go ahead, Paige, and go to the title slide. And it's untitled, so we don't have a lot of blues, but blue sky and yellow walls. So it is a wall, which I think we all kind of saw that. The artist is Johnny Alterman. That does not give us a lot of clues into his background. And I'm serious. I spent lots of time on the internet trying to find, and all I could find is he was born in Miami in 1942 and he died in 2012. And that's literally all I could find. When I looked for this specific image, all I could find is that it's in the National Art Museum. And I think it was featured previously in a class or discussion on color. And that's all the information there was. So we're going to have to kind of leave ourselves not knowing what the artist might have intended other than what we saw in this today. So,
is it at the museum right now? Is it on display at the museum right now?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay.
It's part of the collection, but it may not be on display right now.
Yeah.
But
How
it's part
did
of
it get
the
to the
collection.
museum? Do you know any of the background of how it got to the museum? I see it's, you know, in his estate, but was it willed? Was it purchased? Was it a gift?
It was a gift.
It
If
was
you
a
look at the
gift,
title
yeah.
slide, it was the gift of Cheryl Alterman in 2015. So
That's about all I could tell.
Pardon me?
That's about all I could tell you as well.
yeah.
I was going to say, who is Cheryl Alterman?
What's that?
I said, who was or is Cheryl Alterman?
I'm sure our director and those that are involved with the collections could answer those questions, but I unfortunately don't know those answers.
But I'm gonna, and I don't know for sure, Ellen, but based on the fact that she and the artist share the same last name,
Yeah.
she might have been his spouse. She might have been his wife, and also since it
Or a child.
came from the estate of him, I suspect maybe that's true. But I mean, I was amazed at how there was absolutely nothing out there on him. The little bit I got on him, his birth date, and the fact he was from Miami, was from the Princeton University Art Museum website, and that was the one that had anything beyond just his name and some photographs.
I found his obituary.
It's a
Yeah, he died at 70. He was born in Miami, and his mother was a successful local sculptor. He was an attorney, and he developed an interest in photography and attended the Penland School of Crafts. In the late 70s, he moved to San Francisco and got his master's in fine arts. He's exhibited in many galleries and published in several journals. His most successful series was Vertical Walkways, which he created while walking the sidewalks in the city and encountering stairs because of the city's steep hills. While teaching in Big Sur, he met Ansel Adams, with whom he exchanged ideas and works. In the early 80s, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's. In 85, he returned to Miami and became the general counsel for his family's trucking business. Oh, and that's when he met Cheryl Finnegan, who became his partner and wife. So he was no longer to use a viewfinder camera, so he was able to create art using a digital point and shoot camera. After living several years in North Carolina, they moved to West Palm Beach. So he will be missed because of his artistic eye, his unique sense of humor, his strong opinions, his forceful leadership skills, and his loyalty to his family and friends.
Thank you so much, Sandy. I
Thanks,
suspected
Sandy.
there was
Great.
a North Carolina connection there because she donated this to the museum. So
Yeah.
Well done. Well done.
Perfect.
it's a good deal. Any other comments before we move on?
I just wanted to mention that I'm wondering, as someone who used to do, darkroom black and white photography, do y'all think that the bottom section was superimposed? I mean, what year did he die? Would he have-
2012.
so he would have had access to the technology available at that time to create the bottom part of the image? It's a question.
And that could be because I think Sandy also read in his obituary that he did digital point and shoot. So he was familiar with digital photography, obviously. So that's certainly
Okay.
could be.
All righty.
Great. Let's go ahead and take a look at our next artwork.
I love this.
Hmm.
So what do we think is going on here?
Looks to me like a collage instead of a painting, but it could be a painting. Very, very interesting. Yeah. And love the colors. It's just really would jump off of your wall.
And I agree. I'm a color person, so that's one reason.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like an abstract grouping or bouquet of flowers being shown outdoors. And the colors are absolutely fantastic.
Like Ellen said, definitely an abstract. I see the sun in the back and I see the flower, and it's the shading of the colors of the oranges and reds and they're how vibrant they are, and the movement as you start from the center and go out with the shadings of the same colors. Really, really draw your attention, catch your eye there.
And the contrast with the grays and the blacks, with very, very dark green on the bottom and the black, although that may also be a very, 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 very dark green on top. Amazing amounts of contrast. I love it. I want it.
I think
it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful. I agree that it's collage. You can see the sharp edges on all the shapes. And then he colored in with overlaying colors. I was just putting my hand over the white, and the painting really doesn't work. That little strip of white, for me, that little strip on the right just makes it. It's really beautiful. Yeah.
It
I
is.
like all the shapes with the points. I mean, the points on the
Yeah.
flowers, the points at the top, the point even on that blue as you go up from that one piece of blue in the right center front there. It just ends in a point. Everything has this symmetrical points everywhere.
Even the contrast with the white on the bottom and the white up on the top center, really, there's a balance to it. If
Yeah.
they had a different color down there, it would have become almost top heavy, I think.
Yeah. It's a great
Yes.
composition.
If you looked at this for a long time, you would still be seeing so many things. Because I'm looking at the, oh dear, we have an echo here.
Well, maybe I should leave this.
Turn that off here, that's all.
Or Barbara, if you and Sharon are want to participate on the same device, that works. While they figure out their audio, does anyone have a comment?
It makes me want to do a modern dance and flow, maybe the stars.
Right.
I think it's very happy. It just
Oh,
has
yeah.
a happy feeling to it. It's just joyous. The sun is rising, the flowers are blooming, the wind is gently blowing, and it just has a feeling of movement and happiness, and I love it. I love it. I could find a place in my house for it very easily.
Barbara, it looks great with the background of you and Sharon.
Oh, are we on here? Okay.
Sharon is my art teacher. She was my art teacher at Olney. And I started doing watercolor with Sharon and developed into a nice friendship. And so we get together every once in a while and watch these together. So,
But I'm loving what I'm seeing, because as long as I look at it, I'm seeing different things. But the gold piece between the two flowers might be a bird flying in, or the blue piece that's coming out the bottom might be a stream going by. It just has a lot of character to it. And I like the horizon underneath the sun.
It does.
So many things. Yeah, it's just wonderful.
The only thing that's totally round, and although there is slightly cut off on the bottom, is the quote sun unquote. Everything else is a variation of shapes, and yet there's nothing that's square. Almost, if anything, it's curved or basically somewhat triangular.
So I'm going to mute for a moment. There's an ambulance or something going by.
Other comments?
I see fruit. This may sound really strange, but when I look at the colors,
I was thinking that too,
oranges,
strawberries or something.
Beets, apples,
Beets, I love beets.
lemons and limes and blueberries and pears, and I see fruit.
You know, interesting you should say that, because when I first saw this, what everyone is, or not everyone, but what many of you are calling a flower, I thought it looked like peaches, the two orange shapes look like peaches to me. So interesting, you see all that other stuff going on, and also earlier someone commented about the use of the white space there at the bottom, where it's a smaller white space, but it's butted up against a dark blue and then the black. Whereas in the top left, he's taken a bigger white space, but it's up against a gray and a yellow. So that, I think someone mentioned how that created a good sense of balance. And I think, as you all mentioned, all those different colors, I think, are very symbolic of many different things. Could be blueberries, could be a river or a stream. So I think that's exactly what he intended.
But nobody's mentioned that there could be two symmetrical mouths wide open, singing away, and you see their lips.
I still see like almost a bunch of flowers, of an abstract group of flowers, leaves, and like almost the piece in the middle. It's like, what is that? Like where somebody said, you know, the fish. To me, it almost looks like like a calla lily opening up, and the work inside. I may have the wrong flower, but it's like, it's opening up into the fish form. I guess you could say.
So, similar about that, Ellen, where exactly are you seeing the fish form?
Well, somebody else mentioned it, the fish right in the center, between the two big petals.
I
Yeah,
see it.
right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that looked to me almost like it, the kind of flower that opens up like that, and then usually there's some kind of a little stem in the middle, like maybe a calla lily or something. That's what they, starts very narrow. It's a very narrow, tall flower. I think it's, yeah.
And I can't kind of see a goldfish cracker there.
Hank, we just made a wonderful discovery that if we take our machine and turn it sideways, it makes a whole different picture. Or if you turn it around upside down, and any way you look at it is just as good.
And I think that's a testament to how well balanced it is. Just what you said.
Exactly. Yes, yes, sirree. Color wise and shape wise.
So I see Sandy going sideways.
Can we do it?
It will.
Yeah,
Sure.
go for it. Let's go for it.
Okay, 1 second. You want to see it at 90 degrees?
Sure.
Sure.
I have a huge abstract in my living room, and my brother came in one day and said, Sandy, turn it vertically. And you know what? It stayed that way forever. It's upside down now, and I like it much better.
Good for you.
That's the joy of doing abstracts.
Right.
So exactly. You know, I think with abstract especially,
We moved to hamburger here. Phil.
Oh my God.
Okay, let's see if I got this in here right.
Okay.
Wow.
Woo!
Ooh.
Or
Top heavy.
One more.
oh, I didn't do that one. Hold on.
Ooh.
One moment.
Mm.
This is kind of nice. I like the original.
I like the second one.
This
and the
one?
original. Yeah. I think, yeah, that was the one. Yeah. I didn't like the thread. I didn't like this. I did not like the sun on the bottom. It was too, too top heavy.
And that's my favorite.
but then you got the upside down art in your living room. So
It's not a sun, it's a wheel.
Oh, is it? Well, now if it's underneath like that, it could be a wheel.
This one still feels landscapey to me because the sun is still, you know, or if that circle, if we think of it as the sun is still in a sun position, but
Yeah.
This one
here's the
looks,
original.
I wonder if the artist did this, flipped it all around and then chose the position he wanted to, or she wanted to display. Who's the artist again?
So let me, the artist, and let's go ahead, Paige, and move to the title slide. The artist is David Appleman, and this is from 1973. And I want to read to you the artist statement. It's pretty much exactly what all of you have said. It said, simplicity of form and design has always interested me. Line, form, balance, rhythm, harmony, and contrast are the basic elements and principles that play a major role in my art. I like to keep it simple, sometimes bird or animal forms, but often only geometric and without subject. Contour lines moving from one form to another produce rhythm to help my work to read from any view. And that's what we just did. And we talked
Interesting.
about putting in the balance. So you all were right in step with what the artist had to say about his work. So very good. And David Appleman, this is called Summer Sunrise. As you can see, it's acrylic. Appleman actually is in Greenville, South Carolina. He was went to Bob Jones University and actually was on the faculty there in their art department until I think he retired around 2010. And so now he's a full-time artist. So I know, interesting, huh? I thought that was
That was a good choice. Good choice, Hank.
Excellent.
like I say,
Really?
person.
Mm-hmm.
Last comments before we move on to the next one.
Sure.
Hank, where is this painting? Is it
This
in
is
our
also in
collection?
the permanent collection. Everything we're looking at today is in the permanent collection at the Ashmore.
All right, thank you.
So, Paige, if you would, then let's go ahead and look at our next one.
Beautiful.
Totally different. Somehow it reminds me of Montford.
Well, since that was your very first comment, actually the name of the painting is Montford Fall. So, your observation was right on the mark.
I live on an alley in Montford, and this looks just like it.
I love the VW bug. What?
Yeah, the little car.
Yeah, it looks like a bug. It looks like a VW bug.
Love the muted colors. They're
Yeah.
vibrant in their own way because of the yellows and the oranges and the greens and the leaves, but yet the foggy, almost muted, misty kind of, it just gives an aura to the whole painting.
It's very impressionistic.
Yes, I thought it was a white rabbit scurrying out of the bushes
Yeah.
Where?
instead of the white bug.
Oh.
So, and that's kind of like the little imperfection in that first painting in the wall that drew or at least drew Laurel's attention right to it. In this painting, the Volkswagen is doing the same thing. And what I think is very interesting is when you mentioned the colors just a moment ago, it's pretty much the same colors that we saw in the last painting. But what a difference in the mood and the use of those colors.
I wonder how he achieved, or she, this hazy impression or expression. Because to get the yellows or the orange on the right or the orange on the left, he takes yellow or orange paint, but it doesn't look like fresh paint. It looks like paint with a slight haze over it, like someone said before.
Well,
What I'm saying?
a difference too is the previous artwork was acrylic and this one is oil. So some of that could just be the difference in the two medium as well.
I love the framing around it. I think it captures the painting so well. We don't need a fancy frame for this one.
Well, I think it would probably compete with the work if you had a fancy frame. So I think very good observation. What else can we see?
Can we zoom in on the window of the house? The house is a little intriguing with the roof line and the chimney. I just wonder
That's
if
the
there's,
most structured part of the painting to
okay.
me. Well, now that you zoom in on it, it's sort of less structured, but when it was in full force, we had a full view of it, it looked almost more structured than the rest of the painting. And I like that contrast.
Yeah.
So the contrast between the structure and
Yeah.
the
The
leaf.
leaves and the, yeah.
I do too. So, and I think another, what Ellen just kind of mentioned is the previous two works didn't really have a lot of narrative going on. They were more about color and shape, and we were able to read a lot of different things into that, or we saw a lot of different things. But what, Swin, do you think there's a narrative going on here?
I think there's a narrative. It's very inviting. It's inviting you to go up that driveway and see what else is there. What are the leaves and the trees hiding? What is the entrance of that house like? Do you want to go knock at the door? I think there is a narrative. It's a very inviting picture. It's inviting you in. It draws your eye up the driveway to the house. It's taking you to the story of what this house is and who lives there.
And in addition to what Barbara's saying, the fact of the VW, it's automatically, to me, I think other people, you knew it was a VW, and there's a certain personalization to it with using the VW and not just an abstract or ordinary looking automobile.
Can we highlight the car? Because I said VW Bug first, but then I'm thinking, what are those newer cars that look? I can't think of what they're called. I'm pretty sure.
Mini
Cooper?
Mini.
Could be a
I
Mini
think,
Cooper.
I think it still looks like a VW. Yeah, but it could be.
The front.
What? The front makes it a VW to me.
So
We want it to be a bug, don't we?
I think
Okay, let's make it a.
I think it says
That's the story. That's the story we're telling today.
I think it says something to us if it is a bug, though, because when you look at older, and I look at the house, and it's a big, beautiful home, so you're thinking, well, that costs something, but then it has this bug, which is kind of more fun. It's like a younger person's car or whatever. So, like Barbara said, that kind of adds to the story. Is there a young person living in the house with his parents or whatever? But in any case, just the look of that driveway, I love it. I love all the foliage around. And although somebody said it's probably in Montford, and Montford does have these back alleys, as I said, I live on one. It is more rural to me than it is urban.
And I don't live in North Carolina. So when I looked at this, I thought of an old house in France because of the old stone border. And I thought of the white car as a little European car.
Yeah,
There's your VW.
Even though there's no people or animals, I can see people and animals, like a kid on a bicycle or a little dog or some animals that are native to living outdoors. And I can sort of picture people and animals in this picture.
The car and the color of the car really make the painting intriguing. When I cover it up, it's a house and it's trees and it's dogs. This really makes it intriguing. And also the shade of yellow. The shade of yellow also kind of gives a real strong focal point.
I had trouble hearing everything you just said because I think some other people aren't muted and I was getting a lot of background. So
Karen, would you like to repeat that, please, if you don't mind?
Yeah, the yellow car in the back, which looks like a VW, the color of the yellow and the fact that it's a car, if it wasn't there, if I put my thumb over it, it's still a nice painting, but it does not attract me in terms of the composition. So I think it was ingenious.
And Karen, I was kind of thinking the same thing, that even though there's that big house in the painting's about the car, because that driveway that leads your eye into the painting really leads your eye right to that little car.
Yeah.
And the fact that we had a big discussion about whether or not it was a Volkswagen and how symbolic that might be if it was a Volkswagen versus just a generic car, I think just proves that point, that the narrative is somehow related to that car.
And I also think the
yeah.
narrative, I think the car also, the narrative is who lives there. Is it an old house that hasn't been renovated? Is one of the houses that is being renovated? Is this taken 20 years ago? You know, because Volkswagens have been around for a long time, maybe 40 years ago or 50 years ago. I mean, Montford has a long history, so I think it's very intriguing, and there could be many, many stories of who has that Volkswagen and who lives in that house.
The funny thing is that that yellow is totally different than any of the other yellows around or used in the painting, and it's lighter, and almost, you know, it's sort of yellow with a lot of white in it. Well, the other yellows are much brighter. That's a cooler yellow. The others are much warmer, and that for some reason drew my eye into that spot. And also the fact, well, it's just slightly offset, it's slightly off center, but the contrast of the color in a very subtle way.
Yes, I really love this painting, but what's troubling most about this session is I'm going to a fundraiser tomorrow and I need to buy another piece of art like a hole in the head.
Hey, but if it supports a good cause, there you go.
We always need to buy more art.
So
You
let's
can
go
rotate
ahead
your collection, Sandy.
and let's go ahead and wrap this one up.
I just had a quick question, Hank. Just, does anybody else see columns kind of extending out from the house, like there's a portico or?
Yeah.
Kind of down in the trees, I think there is something there. Paige, if you could zoom in. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. It looks almost like a screened-in porch.
It could be, you know, because a lot of people from the South screen in their porches, obviously. So,
Right.
but I really like, you know, this one, like we said, was very different. And I think at the beginning of the discussion, we sort of stumbled, and then we got pulled into it when we started going up that driveway. So excellent job. Paige, let's go ahead and look at the.
Yeah, Hank, I think there's.
You wish. Montford.
Montford in the fall.
Somehow that's what got to me. It just looked like Montford without knowing the title. It's not dated.
Landscape.
The artist Julian Davis is actually British born, and someone said this had a kind of a European feel to it. So he was British born and actually did his art training at the Bovee School of Art in London. And in 1988, he came to the United States and traveled the South to paint, and that fueled an interest in the history of Demopolis, Alabama. And that's where he started painting these Southern scenes. He does now live in Asheville. And he said what he had to say about himself is, a decade ago, I returned to a parallel love, narrative painting. And my father was a novelist. He instilled in me a passion for storytelling. And my mother's father was a poet and historian. From him, I learned that I was, as an artist, a citizen of the world. And he taught me to read history voraciously and find there the folklore and tales that speak to the present. And I think we kind of see a lot of that in this painting. We have the old house juxtaposed against a car, which is a modern convenience. We have the big house against the little car. So that we're trying to figure out what was going on with that. So I think he does tell a good story with this painting. So any last comments before we move on? All right, Paige, let's pull up the last one.
In this painting, I see, oh, never mind.
What was that?
Never mind. Go ahead.
That's hard to say.
What's going on in this artwork?
Again, the contrast of the dark and the light, the very light at the top with the sky, and then below, I don't know if it's trees or rocks or grass, but definitely a lot of texture.
Very impressionistic.
Yes, the last two have both been impressionistic with the use of light and the textures, the brush strokes. What is
I think it would look very, very different if you had a spotlight on it.
You talking about like the lower corner there?
No, in the center where it looks so dark, I don't think it would look as dark if it were lit up. Because I think it's a combination of many colors. And I just see dark when I think a light would make it fascinating for me.
Yeah. If you block out, I was just trying to block out as much as I can, the white on the left and right. And it comes out a little more. It looks to me like there might be, water at the bottom, or a small stream. And then these three boulders, like we find a lot around here. And then woods going up, I guess. It helps a little bit.
It does look like it could be Appalachia.
So you're saying it could be the Appalachian Mountains somewhere?
Yes. Yes.
So Paige, if you would, let's go ahead and zoom in on the center where she was talking about earlier, just to see if there is something there that.
Is this where you were talking about?
Yes. Much nicer.
So a lot more texture, a lot more use of the and a better idea of what we might be looking at, huh?
It's like more life. There's definitely greenery there and amidst the rocks and things. So definitely.
The painter could have taken a lesson from us on how to frame and mount the painting. And, cut out all the extraneous side work.
I hear you. So from a mood perspective, how does this one compare to what we've looked at so far?
Oh,
Yeah.
totally different.
Totally different. It's not, for me, it's not evoking much. I probably, walk past it. Very nice, but it doesn't, there was not the excitement like there has been in the other paintings. And it doesn't even tell a good story like the Montford house does.
To me, it looks like a painting done at dusk, and it does show a lot of shadow. I'm not sure if it's a waterfall, but there are rocks.
Boulders,
and it has a more of what is that word? Gloaming, like that kind of feeling where it's a time when the light is not as bright, so that the features of the rock and the water are a bit obscured, but it does look like nature. And in that way, I think it's kind of beautiful.
But it
I
doesn't
think
make
if it was
sense.
I wondered if it's
sense.
large.
I wondered if it's a photograph also.
Yeah,
Is this
actually,
a-
this is an oil on canvas.
It's an oil painting? Okay.
When I see
Yeah.
the light at the right corner and I
Mm.
see the light on the blue streaming, And then I see the darkness on the hills. It's not making sense to me.
Hmm.
I see solitude, but I don't necessarily see peacefulness. It's kind of a strange entity there, just the way the rocks and the dark, but yet the lighter sky.
This is
It's
Micah.
in shadow. It's in shadow. It's in shadow.
I think, sorry, this is Micah. I think what I'm finding is that the two previous images, artworks, were so different than this one, right? For me. But if I were to pretend I didn't see the first two images and I look at this just all on its own, I really like it. I really like it on its own, but in contrast to the other two, it feels very dark to me.
That's kind of why I asked about the mood, because I noticed right off that we didn't get in a quick discussion about a myriad of things we were seeing here. We started off kind of quietly, and someone earlier said it was a quiet painting, and I think that's reflected in our conversation. We're a lot quieter about this one. And also, as Ellen said, it wasn't, and I just to kind of paraphrase her, it seemed like it wasn't pulling her in like the other did.
Yeah. It didn't, there wasn't something about, I don't know if other people felt the same way. Maybe it was because in contrast to the other pieces that we saw, it just didn't do it. It was almost like an art student's painting. Sorry. Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
And Hank, you asked about
It's
lighting.
a focal point, maybe.
I think that the artist was painting a gloomy.
What was that, Sharon?
Hank, you asked about liking this painting compared to the previous one. Well, obviously they're two totally different ones. I wonder what this actual size of this one is, and I could imagine that if it's quite a good size, like 30 by 45 or even larger, that it could be very impressive. And
I
bring
think
the detail out.
I think you have a valid point there, Karen. I think we've lost something in the slide. The actual art and an 8 by 30. So it is a thing. If we were staying in front of it, it would have a more dramatic on it. I think great thing. And I also think that having the ones in front of were so exciting and so vibrant, had a negative impact on our view of this one. Did this one first, we had a whole lot more to say, a whole different opinion. That's something to think about.
I think, Hank, too, it's the subject area that we're looking at. The other pictures we could easily look at and want to take home and see where we might hang it and enjoy it, whatever. But this one is not something that, I don't know, maybe we're not used to looking at a mountain of shale or whatever the very, very dark stone is. And it just doesn't have a happy feel, something that you would, really care to own.
Well, I see a lot of value in it. And if it were on sale and I could crop off a lot of the sky, I think I would love it.
But it has to be on sale.
Yeah. Not going to pay top dollar for this one.
That's how you feel. So let's go ahead. We're about to run out of time here. I think it's probably almost got a minute.
Can I jump in just real quick?
Sure.
The more I'm looking at it, it's not unlike the first one in some sense. And, I'll just leave that right there, but that just struck me.
And you're right. Compositionally, the first one had the blue sky, and here we got the blue sky. The first one had the yellow wall in the lower half, and this has got the mountain or whatever in the lower half. So they are very similar. So now but the use of color is so different. And just quickly on this one, this is Joseph Fiore's artist, as we see, Mountain Trail Dusk, So this was a nice contrast because we had 2 images ago, we had the sunrise. Now we've got dusk. And then Corey was born in Cleveland, Ohio. He actually went to school at Black Mountain College. So that's also college was all about experimental art. So I think it's maybe one of the reasons they were not jumping on this one as well. And also actually ended up on the faculty at Black Mountain Art. So this could, I don't know. It doesn't tell us in the title, but he did spend a fair time since he went both to school and worked in Black Mountain for a time. She worked in Black College up until the school closed in 1956. And now he, after that, he and his wife moved to New York. So any last questions, comments, or observations?
I wanted to say that.
It's a pretty good size painting. It is a pretty good size painting.
Karen, do you want to go, and then Barbara?
Yeah, being 50 inches time by 37 inches, it is a very good size painting, which I had suggested before. It might be possible that in that size, it takes on a very different feel and impression. So,
and I wanted to say that I thought that the artist showed different textures of the trees and the shale and the rock and the water. And I thought he showed a lot of artistic talent in demonstrating that, although it may not be a happy painting, it certainly shows a lot of thought and precision. Yes, and contrast, and
It looks like a 20th century version of paintings of the realistic school in the mid 1800s.
That's about.
I can see that. Yep, I can see that.
I mean, just in terms of the theme of it, of just nature. But it looks like a 20th century version of that period.
And I think that's probably an accurate statement, especially based on the fact that he was a Black Mountain College graduate, so he's going to be experimenting with older styles to try to see what he can do there. So that
it's Appalachia, but it's in the Appalachia, which being in Black Mountain College, it did very much appear to be, which I said earlier, Appalachian. It's just that one of the things that always gets me about that 19th century period is that there's not usually any real focal point. It's just very, very scenic and very detailed. And this is, but it's like in a different way. It's a 20th century version.
Yep. I see that, but I think about to Karen's point, if we were actually in front of the larger image, we might be better able to see a focal point if there is one. I don't know. So with that said, I want to thank all of you for dialing in this Friday. As always, it's a great conversation, and I always see things in the artworks that we talk about that I never noticed before based on what you all say. So thanks again. Turn it over. Tell you about
Thank you, Hank, for the artworks that you selected to share with us today. And thank you everyone for what a wonderful, lively conversation that we had today. And I want to remind you all that our next Slow Art Friday will be on September the 24th, where our docent Megan Pyle, who joined us today, will lead us in a conversation with the theme of Spin the Color Wheel. So we hope that you will join us for that in, I guess, 2 weeks. Until then, have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon.